Test 1 2. Make power to the mic. Test 1 2.
Mark, when do we vote?
The 2003 school district meeting, the town of Bow, is about to come to order. Please join me and stand as the Girl Scouts present the colors and a pledge to the flag.
Color Guard, advance. Color Guard, post the colors. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated.
Please join me in thanking our Girl Scouts tonight. The caller was Ellie Hahn, Samantha Lolka, Jordan Dita, Sierra Welch, Christine Mitchell, Kristen Chulada, Allison Chulada, Cassandra Labonte, Sarah Moore, Morgan Johnson, and Abigail Lavoie. Again, welcome to our annual school district meeting. My name is Jim Hayden. I'm your moderator. If you can come join us and grab a seat, there's plenty of seats. I should mention, we try to guess as to the size of the crowd, and based upon what we saw on Wednesday night, we knew it would be less of a crowd than we've seen in years past. Certainly, there's plenty of room for folks here today, and let me assure you, we do our best to try to get into the auditorium where the seats are a little more comfortable and the setup is a little better. But please make yourself comfortable. There is handicapped seating in the back should anyone need to be closer to the ballot boxes. Non-voters are up in the section to my right. And at this point, I'd like to introduce the folks that are up here on the stage. To my left is Van Mosier, our school district clerk. Next is Mark LaFave, member of the school board. Pansy Bloomfield, Nick Harding, Bob Wester, Steve Elgert, Ralph Minicello, our superintendent, and Peter Chamberlain. In front, we have a number of folks that are the officials in the town. We have some school district officials. George Edwards, our principal of Bow High School, I'm sure if he's sitting here. Kirk Spofford, principal of Bow Middle School. Debbie Gibbons, principal of Bow Elementary School. Randy Welch, special education director. Gay Longnecker, assistant principal of Bow High School. Sandy Bove, the assistant principal of Bow Middle School. And Donna Gerard, principal elementary school. And of course, our school district attorney, Tom Barry. Also in front is the budget committee, Paul Roy, the chair. Susan Stevens is here. I think she's still at the checklist. Sarah Swenson, of course, is at the checklist. Gary Gordon, Eric Anderson, and Robert Graves, and I'm not seeing Leon Kennison here, but he's the other member. To my right is Gail Theos. She is nice enough to help us with the overheads. Tonight, before we get into the meat of the meeting, I'd like to recognize Bob Wester.
I'll keep it brief, of course, hopefully. The first thing I'd like to do is recognize Kathy Holt. Kathy's here with us tonight. Kathy, we'd like to welcome you as our next superintendent. We will officially start She'll officially start on July 1st, replacing Ralph Minicello, who will be retiring on June 30th. We're pleased to have Kathy here with us tonight, and we're really pleased that she'll be joining the school district, and the board looks forward to working with you. Thank you for coming. The next item that I'd like to address tonight is I'd like to have, it's something we typically, Ralph Minicello doesn't like things done in public, and I'm risking my life here doing this, but I'm going to take that opportunity. Ralph, if you could come up here, please. I figured, there's not that many people here today. That's typical his day, so I'd rather do it with a small crowd. Ralph joined the school district as our first superintendent here in Bow in July 1992. Ralph, you dedicated 11 years to this town and to its children. The board and the district would like to present you with this plaque, and I'll read it. It says, Ralph J. Minicello, Superintendent of Schools, SAU 67, July 1992, June 2003. Presented in appreciation of the many years of dedicated service to the children of Bow, New Hampshire. The Bow School Board and the Bow School District present this to you.
I told Bob a while ago that I didn't want anything done special. I guess need to let you folks know that it has really been an honor for me to serve the children of this community. I can't think of a better place to have finished my career. I've worked with some outstanding teachers, administrators for 11 years. I've had board members whose faces have changed significantly over that period of time, but every board that I've dealt with has really been what I would call trustees of the children. And what I've really appreciated most is the support that this community has always given education and kids. You really hold kids right up there. They're very important, and I just want to thank you for having the opportunity to help serve them. Thank you.
I've got one other little tidbit here. Ralph, you're nearly 11 years in Bow. I've been fortunate to serve 9.5 years on the board with you. You're dedicated to the children of Bow. You spent hundreds of hours and days and nights to make sure that this Bow High School was built, that came in on time, on budget. During that time, you consistently championed the many causes, including the commitment to equip properly and have the right books in the Bow High School library. For that reason, the Bow School Board has chosen to officially name the Bow High School Library the Ralph J. Minichiello Library. We have a plaque that's been prepared. It's real nice. But we didn't dare to put it up today because Ralph wanders the halls. It's in the building, and it'll be on display as you leave. You can see it. It won't be officially mounted, but it's there, and it will be there forever. So thank you, Ralph.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Before we get started, I just want folks to know it's difficult for me up here to know whether there's any audio problems out there, so I know this goes without saying, but don't be shy if you can't hear me. We've rented sound systems to make sure that everybody can hear, and it seems to work well, so just let me know if there's any problems with the audio. At this point, I announce the results from the ballot voting this past Tuesday applicable to the school district. I went looking for official numbers. These were in the paper, so I have to hope they're official, but I'm sure the results are the same. For one seat for a 3-year term on the school board, Steve Elgert received 863 votes, and Van Mosier received 834. With respect to the voting on the adoption of SB 2, there were 838 votes yes, 880 no, and that did not carry because it didn't carry the appropriate vote. As was practiced last year, I'm not going to march through the rules of the meeting. Those rules for the second year in a row have been published in the town report. They start on page 5. And I hope you folks are familiar with those, and those are the rules that we'll be applying at this meeting. Just to give you a sense of some general rules, if you wish to speak, the proper way to do that is to ask permission for the moderator to speak. Once you're recognized, you'll be allowed to speak. There are 2 microphones in the audience, one in the rows to my right and left. There's also 2 handhelds floating around. If you have difficulty getting to a microwave, please motion. I'll try to get you a microphone. When you do make a motion, you do speak at the microphone. Our school district clerk has asked that you take particular care to make sure that you state your name clearly and so that he can get it into the records properly. When it comes time to vote on a ballot, we have 1 ballot vote tonight. We have the same setup as last year, and that is the ballot boxes in the band room. We have ushers ready to direct the rows, row by row, towards the band room to vote, and then come back in through the main door and come back to your seats. That's a way of trying to address any congestion. I would ask that you move as quickly as possible because The ballot needs to be open for an hour, but we can go back to the business of the meeting while the ballot box is open for that hour. This year, too, we've checked in people on the way in. All voters should have a hand stamp by now in their ballots for the voting. If anybody has not checked in, the supervisors are now in the back of the gymnasium, and they'll be available during the meeting to check in people if you haven't done so. So please take this opportunity to check in if you haven't done so. For folks who are near the door, who are standing, I would ask that you try to take a seat to avoid the congestion as much as possible, particularly when we finish the ballot voting, because I would like to get people back to their seats as soon as possible. That being said, are there any questions about how we're going to conduct this meeting? Okay. At this point, I'd like to begin the business of the meeting. And first on the agenda is Article 1. Article 1, to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $300,000 for the purchase and installation and related costs of heat pump HVAC system, and to authorize the issuance of not more than $240,000 in bonds. Article 1 is printed in entirety in your town reports and on the warrant, and it's displayed here for your review. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to move
No.
Article 1. I'd like to move Article 1.
Okay. Article 1 has been moved and seconded. We'll have a brief presentation by Pansy.
Good evening. We've all been aware in the last few years that we need certain renovations at the Bow Memorial School. Tonight, we're going to see several warrant articles dealing with renovations and additions. The school board has in mind something of a 2-year plan that we formulated with the help of a committee that was put together this year by the name of BOPAC. I'm going to recognize Nick Harding to speak a little bit about that committee.
Good evening. Early last spring, we formed a committee of Bow citizens to specifically attempt to resolve the issues of renovating, repairing, and overcrowding in both the elementary and memorial schools. The committee was called the Bow Advisory Committee, or BOPAC, and the following members contributed to the results that we will be voting on tonight. And I'd just like to recognize those members. Diane Jose, Mike Walczek, Jean Rich, Jack McAllister, Janet Maher, Bob Lowers, Sue Hotchkiss, Robin Polish, and myself. Thanks very much, and appreciate the time and the effort that you spent for our town.
This article, with regard to geothermal, came about because we were in the process of studying different ways that we could improve on the heating and ventilation system in the oldest part of the Bow Memorial School. This is the original wing of the building that opened in 1964. The systems that we're talking about upgrading are 40 years old, and they are definitely showing their age. In the process of studying different ways that we could do this, our business administrator, Peter Chamberlain, as well as other members of the staff and the school board, became aware of geothermal technology, which is being promoted by state and energy and by the energy utilities. By promoting, I mean they're offering grants for both feasibility studies and also construction projects using geothermal technologies. Peter wrote and won a grant that allowed us to retain Dufresne and Henry, an engineering firm, to perform a feasibility study on the Bow Memorial School to determine whether or not it would be a good site for such a system. So this feasibility study did not cost the town any money. It was funded by a grant. Dufresne and Henry's study found that this particular wing of the Memorial School is particularly well suited for this type of project because each classroom has an exterior wall, and it is sitting on rock, which provides a very stable temperature exchange. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has, can't see it and read it, has rated geothermal heat pumps among the most efficient heating and cooling technologies available today. Geothermal heat pumps can be used almost everywhere worldwide. They're energy and cost efficient. They conserve fossil fuel resources. They provide, thank you, they provide, provide clean heating and cooling with no emissions from burning fuels. Geothermal heat pumps are also called geo-exchange systems, and we can have residential and commercial heating and cooling systems without a geothermal reservoir. Wait a minute. Usually, you can wait a minute. Usually, when we think of places, when we think geothermal, we think about places where there's a large temperature differential. For example, hot springs or geysers. These hot areas would be called a geothermal reservoir. So the first question that comes to mind for a cold place like New Hampshire is, how do we use geothermal without a geothermal reservoir? Especially when it comes to heat pumps, previous experience has told many of us that heat pumps, like an air conditioning unit, work well down south, where the temperature difference between winter and summer isn't so large, but don't work very well at heating houses up here. Why would this be different with a geothermal heat pump? Okay. We'll put the winter one back up. With this type of a system, what we're actually doing is putting a pipe with a refrigerant, or something like your refrigerator with a coolant that's put into the ground, and it picks up the temperature of 50 to 55 degrees that the ground temperature is year-round. This is why root cellars are used, because they have a stable temperature. When you go into a cave, it's year-round, it's about the same temperature. In the winter, when our air temperature is very, very low, if we can use that 55-degree temperature from the ground and bring it up, and use that 55-degree temperature to preheat our outside air before we bring it inside, we've saved fuel in getting that air temperature up to the temperature that we need it for in the rooms. So heat is basically collected from underground and transferred to the building in the wintertime. In the summer, the reverse happens. Again, because our reservoir is at 50 to 55 degrees, we can take the warm air that's circulating around the outside air and the inside our building that we want to cool and transfer that heat into the ground and pick up that cool air, which then cools our rooms for us. There are several different kinds of installations for this type of a system. A vertical system where the pipes go into the ground, horizontal, which some of you may be familiar with because there may be some residents that have it, where you basically have a bed, you put it below frost line, and the pipes are in a horizontal arrangement. There are places that use a pond or other large water reservoir as a heat sink and a source for energy. The slinky is just another situation where you can have a number of coils to increase the surface area for the heat exchange. What we are proposing to do is a variation on the vertical, which our engineers will speak to in a little while. With this scenario, each classroom of the 8th grade wing will have its own heat pipe and several pipes supporting it. This will make the classrooms temperature independent. That means they'll each have their own individual thermostat that they can control from the rooms as well as from a central point. This will help the quality of our heating system and cooling system in the building a lot. Right now, we have a situation where, because the way the building is oriented, when the sun is shining on one side of the building, it gets very hot on that side. And then the other side is cool, but our temperature control is from a central point in another part of the building, so we can't ever get the temperature control right so that everybody has a comfortable situation. How much will this cost? In the feasibility study, Dufresne Henry found that with current oil and gas prices, the geothermal proposal on a 10-year payback is the least costly way to renovate the HVAC systems in the 8th grade ring, even without the receipt of grants for the project. The estimate that we're working on from Dufresne and Henry is $300,000 to complete this project. We've saved $60,000 in our capital reserve fund towards renovating the HVAC for that wing. We're proposing to take the $60,000 out of the capital reserve fund and bond over 5 years $240,000 for the balance of the fund. We will be eligible for 30% state aid to construction. Because we're one of the first schools in the state to consider this type of a project, we are also eligible to apply for a number of grants that can help bring the cost down to the town. Can we be guaranteed of the grants? No, the grants have to be applied for against, and we'll be in competition with other schools to do that. We can't guarantee getting them, however. But the earlier we have an approved project, the sooner we can apply for the grants, and the better position we'll be to receive them. Unfortunately, if we try to make the approval of the project contingent on receiving grants, we pretty much can guarantee that we won't get any grants. The grant funding agencies don't want to tie up their money for projects that may not happen. If we were applying for a single grant, we might be able to get away with doing something like that. But in this case, we're probably going to be applying for several smaller grants, and to restrict the project to the receipt of any one of those grants will probably ruin our chances of getting any of the other grants. So it's not really recommended that we make this project contingent upon receiving the grants. I'd just like to point out that over the 10-year payback, this is the least expensive way, even without grants, to renovate this system. With the receipt of grants, which we've been told could be as much as half of the cost of the project, if we get in there quick and get our grants written well, we can almost get this system for next to nothing. So I really would recommend that we go with this project. I'd like to recognize John Henage from Dufresne and Henry to say a few words about the project.
Thank you. On behalf of Dufresne Henry, I'd like to thank the Bow School Board and the town of Bow for giving us a chance to work with you on this project. It has been, it's an interesting project. A lot of the pieces as consulting engineers that we look for when you try to fit this technology into an older facility aren't always there. And so sometimes we have to say, it won't work very well, we wouldn't recommend it, or there's too many issues that make it questionable. What's interesting about the Bow Memorial School, the older wing was originally built using electric heat. So because of that, a lot of the electric infrastructure that would be needed is still there. So there's a number of things, as was mentioned, the school is sitting on ledge. Ledge is a nice heat sink and a heat source. And I'm just going to very briefly discuss the technical elements of this, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. If this is a partial architectural view of the older portion of the school. It's part of the original portion of the Memorial School, and this is where we did our evaluations, and it's these 12 classrooms plus the administrative offices that currently have, I think there's an air conditioner sitting in the window of the principal's office that would be included in this renovation. A little of this may be somewhat redundant to what you just saw, but there are a series of benefits to this type of technology, and especially in this application. The controls that we envision installing would allow each classroom to operate individually 365 days of the year, which means in terms of the town using the facility, not only would you be able to use it for normal school activities, but you have some opportunities to use individual classrooms in the evenings, weekends, summer programs, where now if you try to do that, you have to heat the entire facility. With this technology, you would be able to just heat a single classroom or cool a single classroom. In addition to that, the heat pumps would be controlled using computer technology, so that means through the day the room would be monitored for occupancy. If, for example, it's a snow day and no one came in that day, the computer would sense that and keep the school cool down in this area, again, passing that savings on to you. So in our analysis, we didn't take those factors in, but in actuality, the system will save you more money than we projected. Part of this renovation, besides just addressing heating and cooling, includes a new ventilation system for this portion of the school. And we are proposing, as part of the renovation, that we would use a heat recovery ventilation system. This would allow fresh air to be brought to each classroom as it's needed, and the exhaust air is collected in the center corridor there, and as it leaves the building, it exchanges heat passively with the air that's brought in. Saying all this, New Hampshire has an energy code that affects the design of facilities, and this would help bring this facility up to meet the current energy code requirements, and again would help lower operating costs and hopefully get very good ventilation for this part of the school. This is a little bit technical, but and I'm not going to go much further. This is an example of how this technology we're proposing to install it. This is looking down on an individual classroom in that wing. This is outside. There would be a small heat pump located outside the building, and there is a series of wells that are drilled into the bedrock, and this is our heat source and sink. In each classroom, we would have an air handler up in the ceiling, and we would use this to either provide warm or cool air and fresh air for that classroom. And I could give a long dissertation, but it's a long night, and I would be happy to answer any questions or if there's any other issues that you have.
Yes, sir, at the right microphone.
Green Island, Robinson Road. Would you say that when you place these systems outside the school and these piping systems, will that hamper any future growth or additions to that particular portion of the building? And would you in the future have to move those things because, say, we decided on an addition on those particular portions of the building? How will that affect it?
It's a good question. Conceptually, we might have to relocate depending which way your addition went. However, the well, which is the most expensive part on a per classroom basis, that could remain. We could relocate the heat pump and just run the copper tubing to another area. So the answer is we might have to if you actually did some expansion, but I don't, on a cost basis, it wouldn't be that significant. It'd be a few $1,000s probably to relocate the heat pump portion.
Yes, sir, at the left microphone.
John Violet, Woodland Circle. I read in the Bow Times, I think a few months ago, that if I'm correct, I think there was only about 500 of these such installations in the country. I don't know if I read that correctly or not. But my point is, or my question is a couple. One is, have you had experience with this in other locales of in this particular area? You're saying that New Hampshire, this would be the first time. Are there any in Maine or Vermont, in northern New England? And has your company installed some of these in other locations, and how has it been acting or running?
Heat pump technology is, you'll see more applications of it farther south. In the mid-Atlantic states, you see it a lot. Areas like Texas, it's extensively used down there right now. We have designed a number of heat pump systems in Vermont and Massachusetts and other parts of the country. There are approximately, and this was the last number that I received with some discussions I had with Public Service in New Hampshire about 3 or 4 months ago. There are approximately 100 residences or more in the state right now that are using geothermal heat pump technology. I think there's several installations here in Bow. There are installations in and around Nashua. In the report we prepared for the school district, we included pictures of installations in this area using this technology. And there are some commercial installations. There are a number of installations in the Boston area right now. We're currently working with Harvard University on a large geothermal installation, potential application down there right now. So from small residences to very, very large systems. If you go to the U.S. Department of Energy web pages, they have a whole section on geothermal heat pumps. There is another group called the Geothermal Heat Pump Consortium. They list many, many schools that are using this technology around the country. There are several schools in Massachusetts right now that are using geothermal technology, and so yes, there are lots of installations in this area, but it's not a mainstream technology at this point in this area.
Any more questions? Thank you. Ooh. Can you please wait for the microphone? Thank you.
Is there any increased risk of radon exposure or other health risks from this type of system?
During the installation, drilling into the rock, we could potentially release some radon. However, the wells are outside. They are backfilled with a thermal grout. They're about 75 feet in length. So in terms of in the classroom, no, but there is some potential exposure while the installation is going in, but I don't believe it's significant. It's outdoors, and it shouldn't affect the classroom.
Further questions? Thank you. Seeing none, I'm going to take a short detour for a second here because we'll go right into the ballot voting. But you know, when you're calling around, preparing for the meeting and asking friends to wear vests that make them look like the litter crew on the side of the road, there's sometimes a price. So here's the price. UNH has advanced to the Hockey East Finals. UNH 5, UMass 4. It is a victory for UNH, and I so declare it. Okay. So if there's no more discussion about Article 1, we're going to move to the polls again. The boxes in the music room, if I could have my ushers man their spots, it'll take a few seconds. We're going to move row by row, front to back. I would ask that you proceed to the back left of the gym and come back through the other door. And we'll be back. I need to keep the polls open for an hour, but we'll get back to business as soon as people get back to their seats. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
It's orange. It says Article 1.
You'll be using the orange ballots that says Article 1 on it. Thank you.
That went smoothly.
Yeah, the problem is, well, the problem is that it's hard to know because we've been listening to it. Pardon?
Look at her face. It was a generational thing. Yeah. And the first vote gave us an idea of how many people attended. 191 votes. It's not too good. And then, of course, you know, you saw the votes throughout the evening. once after you left, though, a lot of the ones just breezed through until we got into the, we spoke about cemeteries, church, common church parking lots, things like that. I mean, typically, typical going, I mean, it's like that every single year, too. 17 million, past 15 minutes.
If we now come to order again, during the voting, one of the residents asked if they could ask a further question about Article 1, and without objection, I would be willing to do that. So,
Ray Helgamo, Woodland Circle. I rise for personal privilege. The question is, and it's basically for the information of the body here, if in fact the grants are given to us, the other funds that you're going out for, will those monies be returned to the general fund of the town?
Any grant funds that we receive prior to bonding, we would reduce the amount of money we're going to bond by that amount. If you receive the money after the project has been bonded and we've received the money from the bond bank, then it would become a general fund revenue and would offset the tax rate.
thank you, Peter. Just a technical note, you know, all the microphones are turned off when they're not in use, so frequently the sound man has to catch up to us if I'm not good at pointing out who's speaking. So if you could be patient as we work through that, it's the only way you can do it without creating feedback. So by my watch, the polls opened at 7:40. We need to have them open for an hour. That would be 8:40. So they are now still open. Article 2, to determine and appoint the salaries of the school board and fix the compensation of any other officer or agent of the district, or to take any action in relation thereto. And Mr. Harding.
I move that the salaries of the school board and compensation of other officers of the district be set as presented in the annual report.
Do I have a second? Second, you get this one? Okay. Nick?
This article sets the salaries as follows. School board member, $2,500 per year. Treasurer, $1,000 per year. Moderator and clerk, $50. These are the same salaries as this year.
Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll call a vote. All those in favor of Article 2, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it as a vote in the affirmative, and I so declare it. Article 3, to hear the reports of agents, auditors, committees, or officers chosen and to pass any vote related thereto. Do I have a motion?
I move that the reports of the agents, auditors, and committees or officers chosen to be accepted as written in the annual report.
Okay, do you get that? Article 3 has been moved and seconded. Mr. Wester for discussion.
This is basically a housekeeping warrant article that typically ratifies the town reports.
Okay. Any discussions about Article 3? Hearing none, all those in favor of Article 3, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. It is a vote in the affirmative, and I so declare it. Article 4, to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $17,046,079 for the support of schools for the salaries of the school district officials and agents and for payment of statutory obligations to the district, said sum being exclusive of all special or separate warrant articles, or to take any other action in relation thereto. This is recommended by the school board and recommended by the budget committee. Do I have a motion?
I'll move that I'll move Article 4.
In second. Okay, Article 4 has been moved and seconded. Can we have Pansy for presentation?
At the beginning of our budget process this year, we asked Ralph and the administrators to try to keep total increases in the budget to 1.5%, which came from the estimate of the cost of living increases at that time. Once we saw the additional tax rate that resulted from the revaluation, we worked a little harder to bring the numbers down a little bit more. We were very careful with expenditures for consumables, and while we did approve some personnel requests, there were several that we did not approve. For the high school, this means that for this upcoming year, we may have some difficult choices to make regarding what classes are offered. We had a discussion about one such situation at our board meeting last night. As you can see from this chart, the piece of the pie that we have the greatest control over is fairly small, less than 25% of the total budget. The largest part of the budget is the cost of labor at 60%, and the special education is another area where we have limited control, comprising 16% of the total budget. Here's a little more detail about specific changes this year. The total salary line is down a bit. That's due to mostly changes in personnel, more highly paid personnel leaving, less highly paid personnel being hired in. Health costs are increasing, dental costs. Our retirements are increasing as we have more teachers retiring. Our FICA costs are up, as everyone else's is. The total change is 0.21%. In other words, it's pretty much a flat line change, almost no change. 1/5 of 1%. The special education piece of the pie, I won't run down every single line. You can see that these are costs that we have very little control over. The numbers of employees we have are related to the specific students that we have in the district. The total special ed increase for this year is 6.25%. And again, the all other section, the piece that we do have control over, is essentially a flat line with an increase of 0.22%, or just about 1/5 of 1%. That results in a total overall increase in the operating budget from last year of 1.15%. I think we have one more. That 1.15% translates with this year's town assessment to a change of 26 cents.
Is there any discussion? Okay. Seeing no one at the microphones, I will take the vote. All those in favor of Article 4, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. It's a vote in the affirmative, and I so declare it.
Make a motion
Not to reconsider?
Okay. Are you asking for a motion to restrict reconsideration? Okay. The motion, second, okay. Been moved and seconded. The meaning of this motion is that if, for some crazy reason, no, there ever were a motion to reconsider that passed this meeting, it would have to happen at a meeting at least 7 days in the future. It could not be reconsidered at this meeting. So the motion has been to restrict reconsideration has moved and seconded. Someone near the microphone, I don't want to talk about that. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. It's a vote in the affirmative. I so declare it. Okay. Article 5 and 6 are petitioned articles. Yes,
Mr. Moderator, if I can make a motion?
you can. Why do you inquire?
Before
What's
we
your
begin,
motion? What would your motion be, sir?
I would move that we would recess the 2003 meeting until May 16th, which is a Friday. My rationale for this is that it would give the school board and teachers a bit more time during the school year to address the current dispute.
Okay. Just 1 minute. What's that date again?
The 16th of May.
The 16th. Okay. You're making a motion to recess this meeting to May 16th.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a second? I'm sorry, the second is from Kathy Leach. Okay. Your motion to recess this meeting has been moved and seconded. It is now open for discussion. Would anyone like to discuss this motion? Oh, I'm sorry. Wait 1 second. Wait 1 second. I'm sorry. I just need the name of the individual who made the motion.
George Morrison, Dunbarton Center Road.
Okay. Got it. Do you want Tom? Yeah. Okay. So the board has asked that Tom to speak to this motion, but Ellen was at the microphone first.
I'll listen to the speech because I didn't understand what the motion had to do with the articles under consideration.
This is not necessarily, this is not relating to the article per se. This is an article about the conduct of the meeting. And that would be simply if the motion was to recess to May 16th. The effect of that would be that we would finish the meeting today, now, and then reconvene on May 16th at, did we get a time? 7 o'clock? So it's a Friday night. Okay, and where's the microphone?
As I understand the motion is to recess the meeting in order to give the parties time to work on a collective bargaining agreement. It's too late for that. Under the statutes 197.6 and 32.5, the collective bargaining agreement would have had to be presented to the district 30 days before the annual meeting. When you recess the meeting, it's a continuation of the same meeting. The only procedure you would have left is to petition for a special meeting.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is to recess this meeting to May 16th at 7 p.m. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Nay. It is a vote in the negative, and I so declare it. Article 5 is a petitioned article, and this is an article of which Mr. Mosier is one of the petitioners, and he would like to present on that. So for that purpose, I would like to ask the meeting to appoint a clerk pro tem to take the minutes to allow Mr. Mosier to speak to this petition. Is Paul Alfano here? He has graciously offered to help in the situation. Yep.
I'd like to move the question to just authorize a study committee.
Let's, if I might, I'm just going to ask the meeting to approve Paul Alfano as a clerk pro tem for the purpose. So I guess it's a self-initiated motion from me. All those in favor of asking Mr. Alfano to help as clerk for these articles, please indicate by saying aye. All those opposed, nay. It's voted in the affirmative. I so declare it, and Mr. Alfano, you don't get any part of that $50. Can you want to do from there?
Pardon?
You can do from there. Okay.
Didn't seem to work very well. Thank you, everybody. One of my favorite things said at town meetings is it doesn't cost the voters or the taxpayers anything. So this particular warrant article is the creation of a study committee that will look at savings and the way that we do things. Once again, we're going to look at, it's not going to be something that we're going to cut from the budget. We're going to be just looking for wasteful things. One of the things that, that brought my attention to this particular warrant article is when I was at a budget committee, and Eric Anderson mentioned that when he was selectman, we were looking at why do we lease to buy buses? Why don't we pay for it right out? Why do we pay that premium right up front? Some of these little things that cost the taxpayers a little bit of extra money that don't go to our teachers, that don't go to our infrastructure of our schools, that don't add anything to the education of our children. And what the creation of this study committee would look at some of the little things, how we buy paper, some of the minor things like that. And I'm going to be brief. I thought one of the presentations at the other night was most effective when they allowed the people in the audience to bring up some of the questions. So I'm going to just step back and let you ask questions or bring up your comments.
Let's, for the record, I realized I didn't hear the second on that motion. I'm sure Mr. Alfano didn't either. So who seconded that motion to moving Article 5? Someone? We need a second. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Discussion. Gentleman at the right microphone.
Dear Bow School Board and Bow residents, on February 13th, 2003, I informed the school board of the thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that the district has spent fighting our family regarding our 2 children with special education
Excuse me,
needs.
sir. Is this relevant to the motion before the meeting?
Yes, it is.
In what way?
It's relevant, related to spending.
This is a motion to determine whether we should authorize the study committee.
I understand that. And this should be included in part of the study.
Proceed.
I have here over 90 letters sent to me from the district's attorneys that have been sent to us. Excuse me. I have here over 90 letters sent to me from the district's attorneys that the attorney has used freely. This does not include all of the letters written by attorneys for the administration and signed by the administration to appear that they wrote the letters. One mediation of the several I have attended lasted nearly 5 hours. There are costs for pre-hearings as well as meetings that the administration has with their many attorneys.
Sir.
In 2000, I attended 18...
Sir, I'm going to ask that you direct specific remarks to why there's a need for the study committee, which is the subject matter of Article 5.
I understand that. Under this article, I think it should be understood the costs related to what we believe is wasteful spending in special education and the use of attorneys against families where monies are being spent on attorneys instead of being spent on students. We believe that they should be spent on students. I would like to continue, sir.
You can, typically we limit the discussion to
I
3
will.
minutes per speaker. Thank you.
It'll be within 3 minutes.
Thank you.
In 2000, I attended 18 individualized educational meetings and spent 42 hours meeting with the school for my 2 children's educational program to be written appropriately. The district invited their attorneys to 10 of my daughter's meetings for approximately 22 to 24 hours. And at the final meeting, they invited 2 attorneys to be present. My daughter was 3 years old at the time. I've had meetings with three of the district's many attorneys related to various issues at different times to date. The school district or our family has initiated due process 9 times in the past several years. Due process is litigation that occurs from a dispute in appropriate program regarding services. The district administrators allowed 2 district employees to test my son illegally with no parental consent without the information, I'll reread this. The district administration allowed 2 district employees to test my son illegally with no parental consent, withheld the information from our family, and it was 7 months before our son had a legal programming document. Another district employee admitted that he gave my son...
Sir, can you please explain to the meeting why this is relevant to why we should
Because
committee?
Things are happening in special education that are costing the district money, and I'd like to see, the money's not spent on attorneys, but on the children. And I would like 2 minutes, and if I'm not interrupted anymore, I'll be able to finish this in about 2 minutes.
Well, you're into it to a point, and I don't mean...
No, this is a 3-minute letter, sir.
I understand
But
that.
I keep on getting interrupted, and if I get interrupted, I can't read this in 3 minutes.
I understand, and I'm simply giving you an opportunity to speak in appropriate ways. I just wanted to say you can finish if you finish within the 2 minutes, but I also was at a meeting where at one point you have discussed inappropriate things because they related to personnel, and
I'm not mentioning any people's
And
names
I appreciate-
negatively, sir.
I appreciate that. I just wanted to make sure you didn't get there
I'm not
before.
mentioning any names negatively,
Thank you.
sir.
Please continue.
I understand the rules. Another district employee admitted that he gave my son answers to a test while he was testing my son. Not one district employee recommended our son to be identified under child fine laws. The New Hampshire Department of Education did an investigation and substantiated the violations. Can you imagine going to a hospital with a sick child and doctors testing your son with no consent and withholding the information? 2 district employees wanted to wait to the end of the year to formally test my son, thus depriving my son of an individualized educational program. In 2001, the district's attorneys attended 2 of my son's meetings and attempted to deny my son specific services by twisting the special education regulations as they were explained to me. The meeting ended and a transcript was to be completed and given out to each person making decisions for my son. I pointed out to the district when I received my copy that the transcript had approximately 190 errors and at a cost of $400 to $500 to the district. In an educational meeting on July 19, 2000, a district employee stated he waits until he turns on the damn tape recorder to ask questions. In kindergarten, my son's one-to-one aide wrote in his notes, "I hope when he starts real school, he will be in a school with special education teachers who are trained to work with autistic students rather than an ordinary classroom." We adopted our children from Romania, and they are now receiving an appropriate education because we've had to fight the system to have appropriate individualized educational programs. This is only a small part of our story, and there are other families. Families are fearful of how disagreement with this district will affect how their children are educated and treated in school. We want our children to be safe. I would like to request that the board be notified of all due process hearings related to any child in the future so that the administration is accountable related to spending money on children for
Please
education.
wrap it up, sir.
I am going to...
Thank you.
Spending money on children for education is better than spending money on attorneys. All we want for our children is an opportunity. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Any other discussion? Okay. What? Oh.
Who's got the hand mic?
We have one person coming to the microphone. Go.
Testing.
More than a test.
Yeah. I'm Ignatius McClellan. I live on Longview, and I wanted to hear from the school board and the business administrator because That's why I thought we voted for the school board on the assumption that they would put together, appropriate budgets and look for cost savings. And I have some concern that this may be another attempt at some of the divisiveness that unfortunately I see divides the town on school issues. And I think what the school board has put forward in a budget this year shows that they did listen to the town in terms of keeping the tax rate down. So I just wanted to hear what the school board thought about it. Thanks.
We recognize, please.
My question is to Phyllis Benoit, Brown Hill Road. My question is for Mr. Van Mosier. I don't know why we have to have an article or a motion for people who wish to get together and make a recommendation to the school board. As far as I knew, if you made an appointment with the school board in advance and gave them a list of things that you thought might result in savings, they would be willing to listen. So I don't know why we are doing this formally when it is open. The school board, am I mistaken? But the school board is usually open for all of us to come before them with any suggestions we would like to make.
Thank you.
That is
Excuse me.
that is a very good question.
Can I respond to that being the school board?
No, she asked me the question.
Okay.
Yes, I can respond to your question. I attend both school board meetings and budget committees, and our school board definitely has their plate full of a lot of issues, as well as our budget committee. And I was looking at this study committee for people who, wow, in and out, huh? Who can look at these things 12 months a year, where the opportunity, if an idea comes up, they don't hold it for a school board meeting. They talk to these 5 to 7 people, and they pass their ideas on to them so that an idea that was really needed in September, that was discussed maybe in February at a school board meeting. For instance, one of the things that was discussed at the school board was to go electronic notifications as opposed to do with all the paperwork that goes out there. And I don't know if that has been implemented as of yet, but one of the things that I've been trained in business is to plan, do, check, and what that means is to get cost-saving ideas out on the table. You plan them, and you can't really do them in a meeting where you discuss a litany of topics. I would like to see a focused meeting, focus on cost savings for the district.
Okay. Mr. Wester.
Responding for the board, in all due respect to the petitioners, the board and the administration work throughout the year constantly looking ways to reduce the expense and income. Prime example is what we did with this year's budget. Another example is what your first warrant article was, geothermal. There's cost savings to be had there. We've looked at energy lighting. We've relamped buildings with energy grants to save money. The bus study that was alluded to, we did a bus study, a cost justification. We're doing it the most economical way for the district, looking at transportation of the students on a daily basis, as well as to use special extracurricular activities and co-curricular. The committee would not have access to special ed records. There's no way this committee could ever get into dealing with detailed special ed situations. That's highly confidential. A large number of hours go into preparation of budget. We review monthly recaps by the board. You've elected a board. You've elected a budget committee to do this job. I see this as entirely micromanaging the board and the budget committee.
Any further discussion on Article 5? You get the mic.
Janet Shaw, Page Road and Bow. By comparison, would this committee be something similar to your establishing the PAC committee? A lot of the ideas that committee discussed and went over was brought forward to you, and some has been incorporated in your this year's budget. Would this study committee be similar and as helpful?
I'm going first Van and then Mark.
Yeah, yes, that's the whole purpose of the committee. To get a broad section of the community, I know that the BOPAC committee had quite a broad view from the committee, from people of all sides and ideas, and that's exactly what you're looking for in this type of committee. Savings can be discovered almost anywhere. Somebody who has administrative experience, somebody who's a construction worker. In our community has a lot of professionals in this community that knows and sees where we can do things much more efficient. And this is not a micromanagement system where you're always second guessing the school board. This is complementing the school board where you, for instance, we just discussed the geothermal issue, or one of the things that we're going to discuss a little bit later in the evening, to remove a freezer and open up space. Those are all savings to the school system, but so that the school board does not. I'd like to see that the school board do 50% of their meetings at cost savings. That's not practical and that's not feasible, and that's why that's why the petitioners would like to see this turn into a 12-month-a-year study committee.
I'd just like to make one comment, please. When the school board recognizes a need, as they have with our facilities, they create a committee to work on that specific project and to report back to the school board. What the petitioner is suggesting is to create a committee to do essentially the school board work and to report to the Bow Times, the union leader, and the Concord Monitor, and the Budget Committee. It's not going to be a subcommittee of the school board. Thank you.
Okay, some of you might have heard that someone's asked to move the question, and the rule at this meeting is that if the question is moved and someone's standing at the microphone, they have a chance to speak. No one's been at the microphone, so, well, people were at the microphone when it was moved. They've finished now, and I would have accepted it, but there's no reason to now. So, we are now voting on Article 5. All those in favor of aye, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. It is a vote in the negative, and I so declare it. Article 6, to see if both school districts will authorize the creation of a study committee, the purpose of which to be identified cost savings by identifying synergies between Dunbarton and Bow, New Hampshire school systems. This is a petitioned article, and Mr. Mosier will, well, do I have a motion?
There's a little bit of... Excuse me. I'd like to move the question.
And a second? Do I have a second? Paul Roy, thank you.
This particular article there has been changes since this article has been looked at. The Dunbarton School District has pretty close to tied up, wrapped up with the Goffstown School District. So this warrant article, I'd like to withdraw the article.
Okay. Because this is petitioned and it's an article that was petitioned by Mr. Mosier and others, withdrawing is not the proper procedural way to deal with it. As they did at the town meeting, I think I would ask this body to vote it down. Okay. So let's go through a formal vote on this. Article 6, well, let me ask, is there any further discussion? Seeing none. All of those in favor of Article 6, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. The nays have it, is voted in the negative, and I so declare it. Article 7, to see if the district will authorize the school board to enter into long-time lease purchase agreements for the purchase of 2 school buses. And do I have a motion?
I would move Article 7.
Okay, did we get that? Okay. Article 7 has been moved and seconded. Do we have discussion? Mr. Elger.
Currently, the district has 20 large buses, 16 are regular route, 2 are athletic buses, and 2 are spares. It also has 3 vans, 2 of which are handicapped and 1 is conventional. It's used for special ed and other uses. The average age of our buses is approximately 6 years, and the average mileage on them is about 55,000. Sounds like my car. Our replacement program stipulates that buses be replaced after 10 years or 100,000 miles for regular and 7 years or 100,000 miles for handicap buses. We have 2 buses that we're going to be replacing with this article. We had a successful bid that with the reduction for the trade-in cost comes out to a net cost of $58,000 per bus. The lease rate is 4.75%. Both trade-in buses are currently 11 years old, and the current mileage on each one of them is 98,000 and 103,000.
Discussion on Article 7. Is Marie's favorite topic. Yes, in the left microphone.
Marie McMillan. I've been asked this question for 10 years. Now I get to ask it. What kind of chassis does it have?
The chassis is a Thomas.
Okay. Does it have air brakes?
Absolutely, yes.
Snow tires?
Absolutely.
Is it front-mounted or rear-mounted engine?
Front-mounted engine.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, on the right microphone.
Ray Helgamo, Woodland Circle. I just have to duck down a little bit here. Could you please tell me what the difference is between outright purchase and leasing, and what savings would be incurred by outright purchase, which may be cost-effective for the Bow taxpayers?
Over the course of the lease, which is generally leased for 5 years, the cost savings for outright purchase would be $11,065. You outright purchase these buses for $116,600 would be the purchase price. Yeah, the reason that we have always leased is because as long as the cost of borrowing approximates the cost of savings, that theoretically over the course of 5 years it doesn't cost you anymore. So.
Further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, I will call a question. All those in favor of Article 7, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it as a vote in the affirmative, and I so declare it. Article 8, to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $480,000 for the construction of a 3-classroom addition and related equipping at Bow Memorial School. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to move Article 8.
Article 8 has been moved and seconded.
The enrollment in the schools this year is 1,820 as of October 1st, as compared to 1,805 1 year prior, showing an increase of 15 students. The reason I mention this is that some members of our community have noticed that the enrollment in some of the lower grades in the elementary school has decreased. And although that is true, the overall enrollment of the district is continuing to increase, although at a much slower rate than we experienced in the years immediately following the opening of the high school. This shows us that we still have students continuing to move in at the middle school and the high school levels. BOPAC was charged with the task of finding and recommending solutions for the problems that we're having with facilities, both renovations and overcrowding. Due to the concerns about our tax rate increases in the last 2 years, BOPAC's final recommendation to the board was to do as much as we could to resolve our needs without spending any new money. We've tried very hard to do that. Within the very short time frame left to the board, we discussed ways that that could be done. Because we did not have time to get a firm estimate on the HVAC work for the rest of the school that's not covered by the geothermal, we determined that it would be better to postpone that project until next year and do what we could to put additional monies into the capital reserve funds to fund that project for next year. That also means postponing our rooftop work, replacing the roof on the memorial school, because it doesn't, it makes more sense to be redoing the ventilation system at the same time that we redo the roofing. And there is also a possibility that we will be putting in a sprinkler system at that school. Talk a little bit more about that later. We continue to study the problem of space utilization in the elementary school, and we'll be talking about a freezer later to help with that space issue. And that brings us to this warrant article, a proposal for a 3-classroom addition to the middle school. We reevaluated our space utilization at the middle school at the beginning of the year and found that if we were to return all core spaces to their proper use, and if we were to accommodate all classes being taught in a dedicated classroom, meaning no classes being taught off of a cart, we would need 6 additional classrooms today for that to be the case without considering any additional growth at all. The smallest project with an addition last year consisted of 4 classrooms, and this was defeated. We took a fresh look at how we could add a 3-classroom addition at minimal cost to take the edge off of the worst situations in the middle school. The pieces seemed to fall into place. After discussions with Mr. Spofford regarding how he would utilize the space, it was clear that the classrooms should be physically close to the 7th grade wing. A 3-classroom addition could fit into the paved area behind the gym, as shown. The area in red, I guess you can't see the red, but let me... We wouldn't be able to put anything much larger in there because we need to retain the access road as a secondary egress around the back of that area. Because of the time constraints we're working under to try to bring this project forward to this meeting, we chose to look at a design-build process for modular units. Generally, design-build for a school building can be a problem. With very large buildings, you don't have as much control over the builder, and that's why we've done construction management in the past. However, for a small project like this, I think the board can exert enough due diligence to make sure that everything is done properly. In looking at modular construction, we're being very careful to specify what type of construction we want and getting the correct pricing for these products. Modulars can come made of different materials. The least expensive would be a wood frame construction, but that really wouldn't be very good for a permanent addition. We have asked for the companies to price this project with what is called a two-way construction, or non-combustible units. We have received some bids where it's quite a range, but we have enough money in this warrant article to cover what we need to do. We're planning in the next week or so to do some site visits to see what these different materials, what these different modulars look like, and to select one that we will use. One of the problems we had to work with was whether the state fire marshal would require us to retrofit the rest of the building with a sprinkler system. This isn't a subject that's come up before. We invited the state fire marshal's office to tour the school to give us advice on how to approach this problem. They were very understanding and they were very willing to work with us. They understood that if we have to put sprinklers in as part of this project, that we wouldn't be able to do so. And that doesn't solve any problems with regard to overcrowding. I mean, we're still in worse shape with regard to the state fire marshal's office because of occupancy codes. So they are allowing us to commit to placing on the warrant next year a request for funding for a sprinkler system for the middle school. But they will allow us to put this addition up this year without putting those sprinklers in together as the same project. So we will be asking for sprinklers on next year's warrant. However, this is something that we need to understand. It is at the will of the voters, of you, this body, next year to determine whether or not you feel it is necessary to put the sprinklers in. We have committed to asking for it on the warrant, and we'd like to put them in if possible. We are out of code. The interior classrooms in the building should be sprinklered. But again, it is the determination of this body. Just want to warn you that it will show up on next year's warrant. The best part of this package is that it will have no tax effect at all. Part of the money will come out of a capital reserve for new constructions and additions. This is a capital reserve that we have typically funded with surplus left over at the end of the year. We usually ask for authorization at the year end to put a year end, and we have a warrant article to that effect also, that we use the surplus at the end of the year to put into the new construction account. The balance of the funds will come from impact fees that the town has charged builders over the past few years. The impact fees were established to help fund projects to alleviate overcrowding. In other words, we can't use this money to replace HVAC units. That doesn't relieve an overcrowding problem. These impact fees have to go towards alleviating overcrowding. They have a time limit. If they're not used within 6 years, they revert back to the owner. To the builder who submitted them. So I'm not quite sure what year we are in terms of the impact fee collection, but we have accumulated at this point $219 that is available to the school district to use. To what? 219,000. What did I say? I'm sorry. 219,000. I'm sorry. My mouth sometimes does things that are not connected to my brain. The vote for this project is different than other building projects we've proposed in the past, since it's not a bond. We are not borrowing any money for this project. So it's not a ballot vote. It does not require 2/3 vote, just a majority. We will be getting state construction aid of 30% for this project, but they typically pay that out over 5 years. When we receive this money, it will be counted as a general revenue to the district and will be taken against the school tax rate. I guess that's the actual dollar amounts that will be coming out of the capital reserve and the impact fees. There is no tax impact for this project. Thank you.
Any discussion? Okay, seeing no one at the microphones, we'll call a vote. All those in favor of Article 8, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it as voting the affirmative, and I so declare it. By my watch, the ballot box has been open more than an hour. I am now declaring it closed, and I would ask the supervisors to begin counting the votes. Okay, we would normally go into Article 8. Would like to be recognized before Article 9?
It's on? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted, before we moved on, to say thank you to our school board. It's been about 5 years that people have been working to try to alleviate the crowding problems in the Bow schools. The middle school is still going to be overcrowded, but at least we've made some strides towards solving the problem, and I think that the school board has been extremely persevering and creative, and thank you very much.
Article 9, to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $110,134 for the replacement of windows and doors at the Bow Memorial School. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to move Article 9.
Article 9 has been moved and seconded. I will recognize Mark for some discussion.
We're just now tallying up some votes on a geothermal project on the oldest part of the Memorial School. My hope is that that vote will pass and we'll be able to complete that project to give us both heat and air conditioning. Assuming that happens, we'd like to find a way to keep that heat and that cold air inside the building. The windows that we have in the middle school in that section are single pane windows. If you all remember what those are, or were, they're very old. They need to be replaced. It's really as simple as that. And the entryway doors at the very end of the building are very much need of replacing. If we have enough money, we intend to replace all of the doors as well as the windows in that section. That's it.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call a vote. All those in favor of Article 9, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. It is a vote in the affirmative, and I so declare it. Article 10, to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $321,939 to be added to the Capital Reserve Fund established in 1996 for the purpose of replacing rooftop heating and ventilation units at Bow Elementary School and Bow Memorial School. I will recognize Nick for a motion. Well, let's see. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to move Article 10.
Okay. We got them. Eric Anderson, second. Okay. Article 10's been moved and seconded. Would you like to discuss it?
Let's see. I want to emphasize that no new taxes are being raised for this article. What? Where? The figure of $236,939 is from the bond refund. And let's see. Let's see. Sorry, folks.
Rookie.
Yeah.
$85,000 from the undesignated surplus.
There's $85,000 from the undesignated surplus funds balance available June 30th, 2003 for this purpose, or to take any other action in relation thereto.
Just for further clarification, the bond we have here at the high school is basically being refinanced, so to speak. It's done differently than you and I would refinance our house, but they give you a one-time rebate, and that's really another example of cost savings that the district went out and searched down. So that's where that money is coming from, just for further clarification.
Any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll call a vote. All those in favor of Article 10, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. It is a vote in the affirmative, and I so declare it. Article 11, to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $75,000 to be added to the Capital Reserve Fund established in 1992 under the provisions of RSA 35:1 for the purpose of construction, reconstruction, or renovations of both school buildings, and to authorize a transfer of that amount from the year-end undesignated surplus fund balance available June 30, 2003, or to take any other action in relation thereto. Do I have a motion?
I move Article 11.
Article 11's been moved and seconded. Can I have discussion from Steve?
This article basically allows us to take surplus funds from the end of the year and add them to our capital reserve fund established previously for purpose of construction, reconstruction, or renovations in the Bowles School District. If there are no surplus funds, we won't take any. It's as simple as that.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor of Article 11, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it as a vote in the affirmative, and I so declare it. Article 12, to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $91,900 to be added to the capital reserve fund established in 2000 for capital improvements to the facilities or equipment replacement at Bow High School, or to take any other action in relation thereto. Do I have a motion?
Move Article 12 as read.
Moved. Second? Anyone?
I'll second it.
Okay. Article 12 is moved and seconded. Mr. Wester.
This article actually is a similar article that we've had in prior years. It's raising monies to be putting into a capital reserve fund for improvements for the facilities here in this building. While it seems like it's a building that's well established and new, it's being proactive and putting monies away for replacement of rooftop units, being the HVAC, air conditioning and heating, as well as replacing the roof. This article has been recommended by the school board, and as you notice, not recommended by the budget committee. Maybe the budget committee might want to speak to the reason why, but it's my understanding they're doing their due diligence trying to keep taxes low and felt this was an article that maybe didn't need to be done this year. In all due respect, the board feels that this article should be approved this year and the money should be put aside so we don't find ourselves in the dilemma that we've been finding in the last several years in the middle school, Memorial School, and the elementary school, having projects that actually need to be done and the monies are not there to do. So it's being proactive, well beyond any of us is sitting on the board, but it's so future boards can have the monies to do the projects.
Yes, at the right microphone.
Oh, well, I was just wondering what the Budget Committee had to say.
Mr. Roy, the microphone, please.
Paul Roy from the Budget Committee. The reason why we recommended not passing it this year, in light of our tax increases from the revaluation that we all had this past year, and looking at the age of the building, the amount of monies that we're going forward to at this time, we felt it could go another year and just delay the impact to the taxpayers.
Same microphone.
Ray Helgamo from Woodland Circle. I noticed that on Article 11, we passed for the schools in the district, and now we have specialized in the next article for just the high school. Would somebody please tell me why we don't group all of our high schools together or all of our school system?
It's a separate capital reserve fund that's been set up several years ago, so specifically for the high school, it's the way that it was done probably, I don't know, back in 98, I think it was, when the first year we put monies in. The other schools actually were established well in advance of the high school, so they were already there, and they were commingled between the elementary and Memorial schools.
Well, we know that the first school, and then we built the elementary school, and we commingle those. My question is, why can't we commingle all three schools and we have one capital fund that could be utilized for the system?
PNC. Okay, go ahead.
I don't believe we commingled funds for the elementary and middle schools. The capital reserve funds were not established until fairly recently, but they were established before the high school was built. So the capital reserve funds were set up by this body for both the elementary and the middle schools into one fund. And then a second capital reserve fund was started for the high school when it was built. To change the use of any of those funds so that we could commingle them, we'd have to do what the town did last night. We'd have to have a 2/3 vote to change the use of the fund in order to collapse them or put them together. So this is the way they were established, so we're working with them as they are.
I understand me. I suggest that we consider that in the future.
Yes.
My name is Marge Welch, 44 Bow Center Road. In reading over Article 12, I agree with the Budget Committee that I think we should not go along with this amount of money for this year. I think they're very prudent in taking care of us as taxpayers, and I would defeat this. Thank you.
Yes.
Brian Westover, Robinson Road. I'm also work for the town in the planning department.
I'm not sure if all the people here are familiar, but on pages 148 and 149 are the capital reserve funds that we are discussing tonight and how they are broken down. Each one of them is broken down separately, and they're showed how much is in these accounts now and how much is projected in these accounts in a few years. This is a reduced version. There is a full plan that is made, prepared, and endorsed by the planning board for a 10-year program. The purpose of this capital improvement plan is to reduce spikes in our tax rates by putting small amounts of money each year to try to keep the taxes at an even keel as we go along. I just wanted to let people know that this information is out there. Maybe I'll help educate them in their vote. Personally, I'm in favor of putting money towards the capital reserve fund.
Further discussion? Seeing no one at the microphone, I will call a vote. All those in favor of Article 12, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Nay. The ayes have it. It is a vote in the affirmative, and I so declare it. Okay, the tally is in for Article 1. 312 voting in the affirmative, 36 in the negative. It requires a 2/3 vote. Article 1 passes, and I so declare it. Article 13, to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $49,000 for the purpose of resurfacing the track at Bow High School and authorize the withdrawal of $22,600 from the Capital Reserve Fund created in 2000 for capital improvements and equipment replacement at Bow High School. The balance of $26,400 is to come from general taxation or to take any other action in relation thereto. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to move Article 13.
Second. Article 13's been moved and seconded. Mr. Lefebvre for discussion.
As someone who runs on the track from time to time, I'd like to tell you that the track, the surface is, well, it's worn out. It needs to be replaced. Our objective in replacing the surface material in the track is to improve the quality of the material. We'd like to install a 3/8 inch thick, 100% rubber track surface. This will be in the color black because any other color will add about 50% to the cost. We've had some issues with shin splints and just working with the hard surface. And even though we don't have all of the money necessary in the CIP fund to do the job, we'd like the ability to be able to do it now because we have an additional problem in that we have some cracks that are appearing in the track. And if left unattended, they're going to pose two problems. One of them is it's going to be increasingly dangerous for the students to run on the track. And we all know what potholes do. They become a bigger nuisance every year. So that being said, we'd like you to approve this. Thank you.
Okay, I thought you were moving to the microphone. Okay, seeing nobody. Now we're seeing somebody moving to the microphone. Yes, the right microphone.
Hi, Janice Brunel, Pepin Drive. I would like to ask for your support in resurfacing the track. The team that is being created at the high school this year has over 100 students who are going to participate. That doesn't mean try out, that means they'll be working on it. Also, the Bow Memorial School uses the track, and I think once the snow melts, I think we'd all like to get out and walk because we're not going to be able to walk on our roads. Thank you.
Further discussion? Okay, seeing none, I will call a vote. All those in favor of Article 13, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it as a vote in the affirmative, and I so declare it. Article 14, to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate up to $23,907 for the purchase and installation of an outdoor freezer at Bow Elementary School, and to authorize the withdrawal of up to $23,907 from the school food service fund for this purpose, or to take any other action in relation thereto.
I'd like to move Article 14.
Article 14's been moved and seconded. Pansy?
Yeah, I mentioned this article a little bit earlier. In trying to figure out how we could alleviate some of the problems at the elementary school, one of the major problems that we have there is a huge freezer that stands in the middle of the multipurpose room. It poses an obstruction and a danger to the kids who are having gym in that room. I believe the freezer was put in at a time when that multipurpose room was not being used as a gymnasium. It is now, and the freezer is in the way. Trying to figure out how to create a little more space in the kitchen also, because the kitchen was not first built to be a cooking kitchen. It was only a serving kitchen when that school was built. It became a cooking kitchen, I think, when we put the last addition onto the school. But every year we've added more equipment as we've had more students, and it's very crowded in the kitchen also. So in trying to think out of the box, looking for a way that we could solve this problem without having to put an addition onto the school, we realized that if we got a large walk-in outdoor freezer, that we could eliminate two freezers, the one in the cafeteria, in the multipurpose room, as well as one that is in the main kitchen at this point. We also realized, with Peter Chamberlain's help, that our food service runs a surplus every year for a number of reasons. Good management, for one. Another is that our high school cafeteria does a lot of catering work for internal affairs. I mean, when we have a late school board meeting that we need sandwiches, the cafeteria provides the catering for us. So that's one of the ways that we build up a surplus in the food fund. However, the money in that fund, by statute, cannot be used for anything except equipment in the kitchen. It cannot be used for bricks and mortar. We could not have made an addition to the kitchen with that money. However, we can buy equipment. So it can fund the purchase of an outdoor walk-in freezer to take care of those two problems we have at the elementary school. So there will be no tax impact on this warrant article.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I will call a vote. All those, where? Oh. Sorry about that.
Whereabouts is the freezer going to be located on the grounds?
It's going to be added right to, what is it, the south side of the kitchen? Is Terry here? Can you give a better description of where it's going?
Ooh. Did everyone hear that? Okay, could you step to the microphone, sir, and repeat the question and answer?
It'll actually go on the east side of the building, where the double doors are, where the food gets delivered to the food service department. Right on that side, there's the blank wall.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, a door will be cut into that wall. The freezer will be butted right up. We'll have doors so that you can open the doors from the inside of the kitchen, and from there you will reach the doors to the freezer and walk into the freezer from there.
Any other further discussion? Okay, seeing none, I will call a vote. All those in favor of Article 14, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. It is a vote in the affirmative, and I so declare it. Article 15, to transact any other business. Does anyone have any other business? Nope. Mr. Hammond.
Mr. Moderator, Paul Hammond, 19 Bow Center Road. We recognize Mr. Minicello earlier. I understand Mr. Chamberlain's leaving. I'd like to have Peter say a few words to us. He's been a great help to the Bow School District.
Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed my time here, moving on up the road a little bit, but I'm sure you'll get somebody good to replace me, so it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Any other business? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Yes? All those in favor of adjourning, please signify by standing up and walking out the door. Look at that, a world record here.
Thank you very much. You made my job very easy.
You might want to touch base with Peter, because when it comes time to do the bond, I think they're going to ask you to sign some stuff. So,
You do it. I can do it. Gary cards all the seconds. No, but he got
so you got that makes it
60%.
easy. That's cheating. You got to have someone out back do it.